Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and welcome to our first VCE Information Night of 2021. And before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Wurundjeri people, and we pay respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Just for your information, this session is being recorded and it will go up on our YouTube site as well for future reference. There is a Q&A tab at the bottom, so if anybody wants to ask any questions, you may use the Q&A tab, and there'll be a panelist. There's a panelist of heads of learning that will be able to respond to your questions. Or if they cannot, then at the end, Mrs. Seal or myself or Ms. Raat will attend to your questions. I would like to now hand over to our VCE coordinator, Mr. Seal, who will take the first part and the majority part of this presentation. Mr. Seal.
Assalamualaikum, dear parents. Thank you all for joining us today for our 2021 VCE Information Night. Today we're going to be going through just a couple of very important information regarding your child and their VCE program at the school. Just like to go through just a couple of very important points that are not going to take too long. So if you feel free to pop in a question, we'll have that question answered throughout the presentation, inshallah. Okay, so let's begin today with discussing just a couple of important points. But before we do, just a little overview of last year's achievements for our VCE students. So our DUCs for 2020 achieved an ATAR of 88.4, which was a great result given the challenging year that all our students had due to COVID and the lockdowns from last year. Last year, we had a median study score of 28, a slight increase from 2019, which is pleasing. We had some wonderful results in biology and further maths with top scores of 47 study score and a 44 study score respectively for those two subjects. And 50% of our students achieved a study score of 30 or above in English, further maths, and health and human development. Now, in terms of our students, we don't just focus also on their ATARs, we also look at the pathways and where they are now. And our students have been able to get into, the majority of them, into their first course preferences in a range of university courses, right from engineering, architectural design, education, biomedicine, and a range of other courses where our students are currently enrolled and actually starting their courses as we speak. So what does the VCE program at ALSIRAAT looks like? The VCE program at ALSIRAAT is spread over 3 years, beginning from year 10 right through to year 12. Our students have a selection of a variety of subjects, right from VCE subjects and VET subjects to choose from. The year 10 program begins with one year 11 subject, which then continues to completing that subject in year 11, plus an additional 5 other year 11 subjects in year 11. Then moving on to Year 12, where our students complete their 5 Year 12 subjects with a total subjects of 6 completed by the end of Year 12. Now, the VCE program is structured over 2 years. However, our students are at an advantage of having the program spread over 3 years to ensure that our students actually spend the time necessary to gain the scores that they need for their courses as well. Now I'm going to show you just a short video of study scores and ATAR, as I understand that a lot of you might have some questions about what is a study score, what is an ATAR, what does that look like for my child. So I'm going to just show a short video on what is a study score for you all.
What's a study score? VCAA study scores are the first step in the calculation of your ATAR. A study score summarizes a
I
student's
feel it's not playing on the screen.
by comparing them against everyone else enrolled in the same study.
It's not playing on the screen. Maybe just play it from YouTube. You could play it from the page you had just now. It came up.
What's a study score? VCAA study scores are the first step in the calculation of your ATAR. A study score summarizes the student's achievements in Units 3 and 4 by comparing them against everyone else enrolled in the same study that year. A student's study score is a rank that is presented as a number from 0 to 50. This mark is not based on how a student performed in any single school-based assessment or external exam, but indicates their relative achievement across all graded assessments against everyone else enrolled in the study. How do you get a study score? To have a study score reported, students typically must have satisfactorily completed Units 3 and 4 in sequence in the same year. And as part of that sequence, every VCE study has 3 graded assessments. A apart from VCE vet studies, which have two. A graded assessment may be a school-assessed coursework, SAC, or a school-assessed task, SAT, or an external assessment, typically an examination. There's no secret formula to study scores. It's simply a student's final score placed in the range of scores available for that study. The calculation uses basic mathematics. A score of 50 means that the student was ranked in the top 0.3% of students in that study. A study score of 40 plus means the student was ranked in the top 9% of all students enrolled in that study. A study score of 30 is the average. A little over 2/3 of all reported study scores lie between 23 and 37. Completing your VCE is an important step, and while the better your study scores, the better your ATAR. Your study scores do not define your life. They are just a point in time. Success in life can take many forms. To learn more about calculating your study score, visit the VCAA website.
Okay, so that was just a short video about how a study score is calculated. So a study score, a student has to achieve certain grades and achieve certain grades in terms of calculation of study scores, which contributes to the calculation of the ATAR. The ATAR is a combination of all the aggregate scores from the students' subjects that they have completed in year 12. So in year 11 and year 12, students have to demonstrate achievement of outcomes and complete school-assessed coursework. In year 12, the school-assessed coursework contributes to the calculation of a study score, which then ultimately determines the student's ATAR. Now, that students complete 6 subjects. So to calculate the ATAR, a student's English score, as well as 3 other aggregate scores, are calculated with an addition of the 5th and 6th subject, which is taken as a 10% increment for the calculation of the ATAR. Now, it's important to note that the ATAR is a ranking score, not necessarily a performance score. So students are ranked according to their performance relative to the students across the whole range of studies in the state of Victoria. And as we all know, an ATAR is required to gain entry into university courses. Now at ALSIRAAT, how do we support our students in achieving the scores and the ATARs that they require for university entrance? We provide our students with a lot of extra support in the school, including programs such as after-school classes, holiday classes, one-on-one support by the teachers, as well as extra resources provided by the school. Our students are all enrolled in EDROLO, which is a great home tutoring program that students partake for all their subjects, that gives them that extra tutoring at home required to successfully complete the VCE program. In addition to that, our school, we provide lots of career counselling sessions for our students, both one-on-one and group counselling. We also take our students to university visits, have one-on-one career pathway planning, as well as sometimes we also run Careers Expo within the school to great support our students as well. Just a couple of photos of our students going on Careers Expos in the past couple of years. What are some expectations from our students? Home study, a minimum of 15 hours per week, which consists of completion of set work, as well as regular revision. In addition to studying at home and studying using their study periods at school, we expect all our students to meet all our college policies in regards to attendance, punctuality to classes, as well as the start of the day, classwork, home study, and uniform expectations as well. Now, just as our studies are important, NVCE attendance is 90%. For all year 11 and year 12 and year 10 students as well. It is very important that our students attend all their classes every single day. If a student is absent on any given day, we strongly recommend that a student gets a medical certificate from a doctor to explain the absence, as without an explained absence, that might actually reduce a student's attendance to below 90%. If a student has attendance of below 90%, that could greatly significantly impact on a student's ability to gain a satisfactory completion of their Year 11 and Year 12 studies. If your child is absent from a SAC or a school-assessed coursework, a medical certificate must be supplied to the school before a student is able to sit a school-assessed coursework. It is up to the student to make sure that they have the medical certificate provided to myself in advance so that we can arrange for a resit of the SAC. So for example, if your child, Mariam, for example, is away for her biology SAC tomorrow and she's ill, come down with an illness, she needs to go and see a doctor on the day of the school assessed coursework. She needs to bring a medical certificate to explain the absence for the school assessed coursework. And when she is fit to come back to school, she needs to come and see me, provide me with a medical certificate. And then that way we can discuss with the teacher herself about when we can reschedule a school assessed coursework. Now, there are many situations where students sometimes find themselves where they might have to reschedule a SAC, and I urge parents to please contact me in advance. For example, it could be a specialist appointment. If it falls on the day of a school assessed coursework, please contact me in advance and we'll make alternate arrangements. And I'll pass it over to Ms. Rahat now with some key messages for our VCE cohort.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. I hope my sound is working. Mr. Viz, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Oh, awesome. Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Ms. Asil, for taking us through that very important information. It's always a big puzzle for parents coming into the VCE game, so to say, for the first time. But some of you here today may be a bit more familiar. If you've got a child in year 11 or 12, you may have attended last year. However, I wanted to give some takeaway messages for you from this session. And I've got 5 in particular, starting with this very sore looking tooth, which I'll explain in a moment. So if we can go on to the next slide, Ms. Cecile. Okay, so a key message, the first one is that the long-term consistency always beats short-term intensity. And the example here that we use is of brushing on a daily basis, where you're consistently brushing for 2 minutes every day is definitely a lot better than spending that total amount of time brushing, which is the 60 minutes in the month, in one go. So this is very much like studying as well. The key to making sure that your teeth don't fall out is the consistency. It's not the intensity. And it's ensuring that it's done on a daily basis. So the VCE results are no different. If you want to reach your full potential, you want to be making sure that your child is actually scoring the very best that they can, their full potential, the high grades they need to work through their entire course consistently throughout the year. It doesn't mean getting closer to when the SAC is due or when the exams are coming up, but it is consistently every single day. I'm sure they may have ups and downs, but if they actually form a good routine and ensure that they're not cramming in, where we can sometimes fall into the trap of, until we get the pressure building up, the exam due is, the date is due or the assignment is coming up, and then we kind of kick into action. But that's not really a healthy way of looking at it when we consider those who do really, really well in their VCE. And some people have made lots of people make the mistake every year trying to cram in as much as possible before the exam. And it can often work in a negative way, particularly depending on how a student is coping with that pressure. So that's the takeaway message number one. Ensure that your child is getting consistent revision in. The second message, we can go to the next slide. So this one is about setting study goals early. Now, in this table, you would have seen in the video that you've got a study score of a maximum of 50 in a subject. Now, if your child is setting a target for themselves, and I do encourage this, that they set a target for themselves, what are they aiming for? This kind of gives a bit of a benchmark. These are from studies from across the state, and they reveal a very, very important kind of relationship between a student's target study score and the minimum number of exams, for example, that they should be addressing. So in order to be able to safeguard their ATAR goal, it's not a guarantee that they'll get it, but we do strongly suggest that they incorporate this information into their schedule, their study schedule for the year. And if you look at the example, if they're aiming to get somewhere between 36 to 40, remember 30 is about an average. So if they would like to do really, really well, 36 to 40, you're actually looking at 5 hours of study a week. And on top of that, and that's for the subject, this is not in total. You would have seen Mr. Seal put up a slide earlier on. I think it had 12 or 15 hours of study per week. Well, that is a minimum. But if they're actually setting a goal, we suggest they set their targets high. Don't aim low, aim high, and then put the effort in. So those goals will inshallah pay off. So in this example, you can see that this target study score of 36 to 40 will put them in a much higher bracket when compared to other students in Victoria. So if that's their target, then the number of exams, past exams that they should complete for that one subject is 12. And if they're looking at 41 or above in their study scores, and often you'll see in the newspapers, their schools are, or just even in the age, they will have the names and the numbers of students that have achieved that score for each of those subjects. So it is something aspirational. I think all of our students should be aiming for. But there you can see 15 exams per subject that they can aim for. And when we're looking at these 15 exams, it's not trying, again, to cram in getting those past exam papers right at the last moment. But in fact, it is much better for them to start from the start of the year. Actually look at each time they finish a unit of work, look at the past exam papers and look at the questions that relate to that unit of work, start completing them. Don't wait until just the last few days or the last month even. They recommend that the 9 months leading into the exam, start doing the past exam papers from home. So even though this is such a critical part of the process, most students still do leave this to the last moment, and they unfortunately run out of time because they're thinking, I'm just going to revise all my notes first. I'm going to do everything perfectly first before I actually get onto these past exam papers. So what we're saying is set your study goals, get your schedule ready for consistent study, and then set an aim of how many papers you're going to complete from the beginning of the year consistently. Next one, please, Mr. Seal. Okay, so the third message is that every single SAC does actually matter, because the ranking is used there's a very complex formula, but the ranking is ultimately what's used to determine what sort of moderated study score they're going to get. So in this particular example, you can see student one consistently working quite well So in the first Unit 3 SAC, in the Unit 3 SACs, they got A+, Unit 4 SACs, A+, and then in the exam, A+. This is completely hypothetical, but you can see that, you know, you can get something like 45. Now, student 2 also got A+ in the final exam. However, their SAC results were much lower. So they, for whatever reason, were not able to put in the same effort or get the same results. Their study score at the end, the raw study score, you can see there's a marked difference. So the main point to remember from here is that consistently working through every single SAC. It's not for a student to say, oh, this is but one SAC in many I'm going to do. It might only be worth 3 to 5%. No, that's a mistake the students make. They need to see every single SAC as being extremely important, because that coursework actually makes a big difference in the end. Okay, please, if you've got any questions, pop them into the Q&A on your screen, and we'll endeavour to get through them, inshallah. In this next one, you can see a table, 3 students. The main key takeaway from this is that the moderated SAC marks, they do contribute to the study scores, because again, it's looking at the ranking. So the process itself is pretty much, it relies on the assumption that a student will perform similar to a standard in both their SACs and the external VCE exam. So for example, if you get an A+ in your VCE biology exam, it's assumed that you must be an A+ student, and therefore you should receive A+ for your SACs at school. Whether you did or didn't is beside the point. It's just how the system works. So when the exam results become available, the biology exams received by the students at the school are arranged from the highest to the lowest. And so VCAA actually looks at the rank that the student got for the biology SAC, for example, at the school. They locate their biology mark, and that has the same rank, and gives this pretty much as the mark of moderated SAC mark. So if we have a look, an example here, Annie, she obtained a SAC rank of 3, so came 3rd in the class. Her moderated SAC mark becomes the score obtained by the student with an exam mark of 3. So if you look at the final exam mark, this person who got a 3rd was Leon, and the final mark of exam was 92. So if you have a look at, again, looking back at Annie's, she had 71% just as the average SAC mark, and an exam mark of 98%. But the SAC rank, if you have a look at number 3, and the exam of number 3 as well, you'll see that it's gone to a different person. So it is really, really important to maximize those ranks as much as possible, because the final SAC mark does actually get moderated. So it's not exactly as the SAC mark that's given from the start. So there's a whole lot of complex formulas that are actually used. And in this one, if you have a look at the person who came first for the SAC marks, the rank was first, James. They got an exam mark of 92. So the exam mark doesn't change, but they actually end up getting, for their moderated SAC mark, the mark that was actually first, because their rank was first. So you'll see their SAC marks changes to 98. So there's a distinct advantage of being moved up. So each of them have pretty much moved up, except for the first one, Annie. Hers went down slightly. But it is complex, but main takeaway from this is that ranking is extremely important. So students need to do the very, very best to get the best moderated SAC mark that they can get, which actually influences the total mark. Okay, the next one. Okay, group study. this can be a challenge for many because to be able to do well requires a lot of focus, but it really does help to have others to discuss the work with. So when you are, your main focus is, first of all, to do everything in your power to maximize your SAC marks. But in order to be able to study effectively, it is an advantage to the group if they all actually help one another to succeed in the final exam. So main takeaway is do well relative to your classmates in your SACs, but work together as a class to all do well in the final exam. So it's not, trying to push someone else down, but really the whole class working together to improve the marks overall really does help. But the trick is not to be distracted when they are doing group study and to stay focused. Keep the social media and other messages, distractions out of the way and focus on the task. That's pretty much from me. I've got a bit of sharing. I've managed to twist my daughter's arm. She completed her VCE just last year. And I asked her what would be useful to share with the parents today. So I'm just going to hand it over to her. Inshallah, she really doesn't want to be on the camera, so I might just put the camera off because otherwise she will not speak. But I'm just going to hand over to her. Okay, Aisha.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Aisha. I graduated last year. My VCE experience is not to me a happy one. It's mostly regrets and, well, remorse, regret and remorse. Some things that I wish I did differently. I don't have any of those inspirational key points to take away or any of those. I can just tell you what I wish I did differently. I regret just doing the basics and +1. I regret doing the basics and those TSFX worksheets, tests, but it wasn't regular. I would do the basics and what the teachers would give me as extra, but I wouldn't go out in my own way and do regular essays. I would tell myself that I should do an essay a day, but it never happened. And I regret that. I'm a major procrastinator and I really regret that. I also regret wasting my home time. I didn't use it very well and it shows. I regret being overconfident because you see your marks in school and you get overconfident from it. You don't realize that VCE is a whole different, it's a game. It's literally a game and you're playing it wrong if you think like that. I realized that in year 11, but I forgot it and it happened all over again in year 12. It just repeated itself. But most of all, I regret letting everyone down, letting myself down, because I knew I could have done more, but I didn't. So kind of, I wish I could.
What advice would you give to the parents how they can help their child so that I guess their kids don't have as many regrets? Mind you, Aisha, you did really, really well. So she's really, really hard on herself. She should be really proud of what she's achieved. And we always try and remind our students, it's really not, no matter how many times you tell the students, it's not that final number, it's your effort. I think when the students, when at the end of the day, they still look back and they think, oh, I could have done more. I should have done more. And I think that's something that is a natural feeling. But as parents, I think it's our job to really encourage and motivate our children as much as possible, because that motivation, these 2-3 years are tough. So it's not easy. But thank you, Aisha. I know it's not easy to share that either. I'm just going to put the camera back on. If you've got any questions, you heard it directly from a student who finished their VCE, who did quite well. We're really proud of the effort she put into her VCE. And despite telling the students so many messages, you are much more than a number. And our last year's cohort, we were so immensely proud of graduating those students, because we believe the success is far more than a number they get at the end. Yes, we want them to do the very, very best that they can. And yes, we will work with them and with you. We want to partner with you because it's important to get your help in this to keep motivating our children and letting them know that them as people, their akhlaq is really important. So the graduating year of 2020, they had a really tough year. They've got a lot of regrets and they wish they could have changed things around, but at the end of the day, if they put in their 100%, then inshallah, that's the best that we can expect. And what we really need from you is that way of continually be there for them to help them understand it and unpack all the trouble, any problems they're going through. We have such an amazing team at school. You've got all the lovely heads of learning, and they're all here today. Jazakallah khairan to all of you. They're here to support the learning of your child all the way. And they're not just there as subject experts, which they are, but they are continuously motivating them, encouraging them to do their very best. And if you have any questions, any concerns, please don't wait until a parent-teacher conference or until you get a formal result. If there's anything that you have any questions about, please see one of us, particularly Miss Asil. Mashallah, she's there to advise you and your child as to how to move forward and what kind of career pathways that they are setting their goals on. So that's it from myself. Mr. Vis, I'm just going to hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Rahat, and thank you, Mr. Seal, for that presentation. And I hope the parents that we have benefited from it. I'd just also like to mention that, you know, the school is not always judged by the maximum ATAR it gets, because lots of our students, especially the middle cohort of our students in the mid-range, they are the ones that really do well, and sometimes we don't give them enough of the accolades for doing so well. We always look at the highest ATAR and judge a school by that. But in our school, we actually we don't screen our students into coming to VCE. We don't take this the cream of the crop like some others do. And some of our students just work so hard, and they actually progress so much in their own learning, but they progress to a point which to them means a lot. And that is what we are as a school. We like to help everybody work to their maximum and gain the best they can. You can't achieve more than the effort you put in. And different students have different levels of achievement. And once you've achieved that, I think you've reached your goal. Thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. This webinar will be, as I mentioned, will be recorded and be on our YouTube channel. And if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to send these into school to Ms. Asil or to CC at ALSIRAAT, and we will answer all your queries. Thank you all for attending, and good night.